Hello everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, Voice, Video, and Social Media in BPM Forms. I'm your host, Ellie Stutz, Knowledge Manager for P&M Soft, and we welcome you all today to the webinar. Today's webinar, what is it about? Well, here's the format. First, we're going to talk about user experience and why it's so important. Next up, we're going to be talking about forms and form usability, principles and examples. Then we're going to start to think out of the box, and we're going to be opening up and expanding your horizons by talking about adding different sorts of media to forms. Then we're going to see a live demo of adding different kinds of media, that's voice, video, and audio, to forms in Sequence BPM Suite. And finally, we'll be taking your questions. So let's take a look at this form for the get-go. This form is taken from a company which is an express delivery company. I'm not going to name the company, but as you're looking at it, tell me if you think this form looks easy to understand, easy to use. Raise your hand if you think this is an easy to understand and easy to use form. Now, if I would hazard a guess, I would say that most of you are not raising your hands. And indeed, this form is difficult to understand. We have a lot of different fields, something about email, something about exception, delivery updates, very unclear. In fact, I found this from a website which highlighted how confusing and not easy to use this form is. And actually, in the course of this webinar, we're going to be suggesting what to do in a case where you have a form which you are concerned that will be difficult to use for your users. How are you going to help the user understand a confusing form? And that's actually the big the innovation that we're going to be introducing during this webinar. This was actually the form that you all filled out to register for this webinar. It's a little, I would say, a little bit easier to understand. You're registering for a webinar. Here too, as you go through this webinar, you'll see that even this form can be improved, and we're going to see some examples of actually some very excellent forms, and we're going to really take apart what makes a great form and what makes a less than great form. And the goal, obviously, is to help you design better forms which are easy to use and easy to understand. So let's talk about UX. Now, I did a poll around our office, and about 1/3 of the people, or I would say about half of the people, automatically knew what UX was. This is a concept which is extremely important when we talk about software development and websites and IT in general. UX, as defined in Wikipedia, is the way a person feels about using a product, system, or service. User experience highlights the experiential, effective, meaningful, and valuable aspects of human-computer interaction and product ownership. I'll stop reading here. You can read the whole thing. But I think the key here is human-computer interaction and the way a person feels about that interaction, the person's perceptions of how easy to use and efficient the system is. Now, this is actually a drawing which was based on a concept by IBM, but it was a little more simplified which I found on a website by a man in the name of Diego Lago. And this is an attempt to put the user experience in the framework of several ideas. We have here content strategy, information architecture, functionality, platform, user interface, and user accessibility. Now, I think that this is a good way of starting at looking at user experience because it puts it in the framework of several things. This is to say that user experience is not just the form or how easy the form is to use, but it involves and encompasses many other aspects of a system, including how well it functions, the different platforms that the system is available on, how well is the content organized. So we're putting in a framework of a larger set of ideas. And here I'm also bringing in the ISO definition of user experience, of usability. And the definition here is effectiveness, efficiency, and satisfaction with which specified users achieve specified goals in particular environments. And what I like to emphasize here is the word goals, because when we talk about we're going to focus today on forms, and that's really just part of user experience. But a form is really a means to an end. And the end here is the goal, and the goal is to have a successful user interaction with the form, basically having the user fill out the form in a way, in a correct way, in a way which was painless, easy, efficient, and correct. So what I like here about the ISO definition is it emphasizes the goal aspect, that we're really trying to aim for a specific end. Now, UX, user experience, who cares? Why should you care about user experience? Well, obviously you're listening to the webinar, so you care somewhat. But why is it so important? Why should the user have a good experience with the form that you're designing or the software you're designing? So here's some reasons. First of all, if the user has a good experience, then the goal will be achieved in more scenarios, in more cases. So the interaction will be more successful. Second of all, the user is going to be happier with your product. And in a world where we have so many products competing for the user attention, you want the user to put your product at the top. Think of the the number of email platforms there are out there. Google, Microsoft, Yahoo, and think about the one you decided to use, and it's probably the one which was easiest to use, the one which is the most friendly. So a satisfied user is your key towards more users, towards a user which returns and tells his friends, I like this application, I like using it. So that's returning for more. And finally, you're going to have less errors and better performance of your, if we're talking about business process management, because PNM Soft is a business process management company, so we're talking about forms in that context. But just in general, if your forms are easy to use and the user has a great experience with them, and they're clear, so there's going to be less errors. So, and finally, if we're talking about user experience within the framework of a solution, the users are going to be likely to adopt that solution. They're going to like it. It's going to generate a good vibe among the coworkers, and the users are going to go for it. A form is a form is a form, right? Who says right? Wrong. A form is not a form is not a form. There's a vast difference between the usability of forms and your efforts towards better form design and user experience are going to make your forms much more usable. Okay, so I've convinced you. UX is important. What can you do about it? Well, the first thing is you're listening to this webinar right now, but this is just the first step. And the idea is to start learning about the concepts and methods for improving user experience starting now. Okay, so let's take a quick look at the elements of a form. This is actually, I'm going to credit here a man named Justin Mifsud from, he wrote an excellent article in Smashing Magazine entitled An Extensive Guide to Web Form Usability. And I really have to give him credit because many of some of the ideas here and basically he's organized and aggregated a lot of the research here into one article, and I'd like to credit him for that. So here I'm just going to click through. Here's some of the basic elements of a form. We have labels. Okay, this is a label here, first name, number 1. 2, input fields. Clearly, this is an input field. The user must input data into this field. Actions. Here's an action, a button, I agree, continue. Help. Help. Where's number 4? Help. Can't read the text in this box. Okay, here's a CAPTCHA text. Refresh, listen, or help. Okay, and we're going to actually really expand on 4 as we continue through this webinar. I'm going to show you some very interesting live examples in sequence where we completely revamp the idea of number 4 of help with various different kinds of media. And messages, that's number 5 here. This could be a warning message. It could be an informational message. And 6, validation, where we have 6, email address not valid. So these are the 6 basic elements of forms, and they're important to just understand before we continue because we are talking about user experience within the framework of forms. Okay, so let's take a look at what Caroline Jarrett and Jerry Gaffney said about web form usability in their book, Forms That Work, Designing Web Forms for Usability. They say that all web forms need 3 elements, and they need 3 of these elements to be put together in an optimal way. Number 1, relationship. A form establishes a relationship between the user and the organization. Okay, the organization could be your company, and the user could be your client. So it's really establishing a relationship there. Second of all, A forum establishes a dialogue between the user and the organization, because really that's the computer-human interaction. The forum is there as your organization's representative, speaking with the user, having a conversation with the user, saying to the user, I need you to do this, this, and this. Here's how to do it, and then the user's got to do it. So, and three, the third factor is, by the way they look, forums establish a relationship and a conversation. So that's kind of a combination of one and two together, but the focus on appearance is important, and we're going to see why in a second. We're going to take a look at some examples of forums, good and bad, and all the way in the middle. So let's take a look at some examples here. Here's an example forum on the left, and let's compare it to this example forum on the right. The one on the left is from Debenhams, and we have a login register form, a form which is basically opening up a relationship or establishing a relationship with users. Either they're already registered or they're new customers, so the user has to understand which side to fill out based on that. Notice that in Amazon has combined those two types of relationships into one linear form, and in many ways making the sign-in process, a lot easier and more basic. So those are two ways. I mean, I wouldn't say that the Debenhams way is wrong or bad, but the Amazon way is keeping the form clean and establishing a relationship perhaps in a more fluid, easier to use way. Let's take a look at the conversation element. Okay, here we have a form on the left. I can't remember exactly where this is from, and here we have a form on the right from Yahoo. Okay, in a conversation, you have topics that I'm talking to you. I will start with one topic. I will move on to another topic. So one of the elements of designing forums is to split your forum up into different topics, is to group it with according to topic. And if you notice, so both of these forums have done this, but on the left we have a little bit. The criticism here is that the left forum, the topics are too far away from each other and too space-wise, actually appearance-wise, removed from each other, and we've kind of lost the person's attention. When you have a conversation with someone, like I'm having a conversation with you now, I'm trying to keep your attention by moving logically, not spending too much time on one topic and moving to the next topic. So we have a good example of that here with the Yahoo forum, a split into two topics, one after the next. Here we have another part of the conversation, which could be you may need to have a long conversation with your user. And I'm sure you've seen this, one of the tactics for making a long conversation easy and splitting it up into logical topics is to have a multi-step form, like you can see on the left here from Crowded Text. And this is very effective, and it can make your forum a lot simpler and less cluttered, and the user knows exactly where he stands. And you can even sometimes give the user a way to go back and correct something in the first or second step. On the right hand, now we're not talking about mobile extensively during this webinar, but as part of the conversation, mobile poses a great challenge, because on mobile you have less real estate, you have less space with which to do anything. And here again we have the idea of a multi-step form on a mobile creating an account in Fring. And here again we have the simplicity of fill this out, hit next, fill this out. So that's part of an efficient, good conversation. When you have a conversation with someone, you don't want to do certain things. You don't want to interrogate them. You don't want to ask them too many things or things which you don't need. So just as when you're having a conversation with an individual, you have to think about that when you're designing a forum. It's got to flow. You got to keep it simple, and you got to keep it flowing. Let's talk about appearance for a moment and take a look at these two forums. I'm sure you're familiar with the one on the left, which is obviously the Facebook homepage. It's the sign up forum on the Facebook homepage, with the login also as well at top. And I think here what we're looking at is a clean forum, a one-column forum, very simple. We have some things to notice here. We have both here and on the one on the right, and in any really good forum, the button, which is the action, should be clear. It shouldn't say submit or update. It should say sign up, which is the action which you really want the user to perform. We don't have too much data to fill out here. quite simple, quite clean. On the right, we have Dropbox, which you may have heard of, a great way to share files. This is not a paid advertisement for Dropbox, but what it is noticing how clean the Dropbox forum is. Lots of white space, very clean, and gets it done efficiently. Kudos to Dropbox there. Here's a forum which we can be a little bit critical of, and I'll tell you why on the left. One of the things about this forum, which is a little less easy compared to the one on the right, we have a lot of, first of all, the labels here are in all caps, and that's not advisable because it's harder on the eye and it takes longer to read, and that's something which is confirmed by studies. And they're also not aligned with the input fields. Whereas if you take a look at the Amazon forum on the right, you do have that alignment and you don't have all caps. One of the things we could be critical about on this forum is maybe a little bit too much wordiness at the top, too many, where you can use a couple words, 2 or 3 words, and get the same idea across. Like, for example, create a password instead of protect your information with a password. This will be your only Amazon.com password. That's a lot of text there. We can recommend to use a bit less. Okay, so now let's talk about that. We've gone through some of the basics of usability with forums and user experience, and you can see how how it's so easy not to do it right, and it's so important to think about these little things when you're designing your forums. Now let's talk about what this webinar is really about. That was just the first part. The second part is the innovation that this webinar is attempting to bring, is how we can add different kinds of media to forums in order to make them difficult forms especially much easier to use and easier to understand. And we're going to think a little bit out of the box here. So these are my principles here that we're going to follow through with as we continue. Forums should be able to interact with users with all levels of communications. All the forums you saw until now have pretty much been text only, fill out the fields, that's it. So not in every case, but in some cases want to use different kinds of communication with the user. Second of all, forums should be able to speak for themselves. Okay, so figuratively, yes, and here we're going to actually see some real-life examples of a forum which actually talks for itself as we come to the demo in a moment. Forums can connect users with experts. We're going to see an example of that as well. And forums will be able to understand users. I don't have that cooked up yet, but that is something which I think will happen, where as applications become more and more intelligent, the forum will have more intelligence. The forum is conducting a conversation with the user, and we're going to be able to see in the future forums that really attain a level of, yes, artificial intelligence. So when are we going to add media to forums? And I guess we'll be able to answer this question a little more as we go along, but one, when a forum is hard to understand. Second of all, like for example, the forum I showed you at the beginning of the webinar, and we'll see another example in a minute. Second of all, when users lack knowledge or expertise, they don't know how to fill out the form, it's too difficult to understand, or they're just a new user and they need help. Thirdly, to improve interaction and user experience. And fourth, to improve collaboration. We're going to see that both as well as we continue now. So maybe we'll continue to this slide. At the end, this is really just a timeline of how forums started out and where we're going to end up. I'm not going to go through all of them, but as you can see on the left, text fields only, and on the right, video, social interaction, voice recognition, forums that think. Okay, let's go to our live demo in sequence and take a look at a forum which really thinks out of the box. Okay, here we have a forum. Here we have another forum. Hold on a second, and log in, and there we are. Okay, here we have a forum. I had to renew my passport recently, and I had to fill out a forum. It was not an online forum, but that's why I picked this example. And a passport renewal forum can be very, very difficult and hard to understand, a lot of guidelines, a lot of instructions. And my idea here was to create a forum which makes the filling out of a passport renewal form a lot easier to understand. So now I'm going to admit that the design of this part of the form, the left side of the form, that was part of my innovation. The design of the left part of the form could be improved, but the point of this forum is to show you what kind of new media you can add to your forums to make them easier to understand, to make them more interactive. So let's take a look at some of the things. Let's start with this one as an example. Let's say I enter some numbers here instead of letters. I get a...
Please enter text only in this field.
Okay, that was basically a message to the user, and we're going to show you how we added all these elements in sequence in a minute, saying this is not what you want to put in this form. You want to put text in this form. We have, and that was triggered by a blur event. We'll see that in a minute. Here, this is triggered by a mouse over event.
Please enter text only in this field.
We have the same kind of audio message to the user. We have also what you've seen before, a tooltip. Enter your eye color, brown, green, or blue. That's something which is not no innovation there, but that's also something you may want to use for your forms. We have also just going through some of the basic things, and then we'll get to some more complicated ones. Here's another validation. This is a textual validation, a pop-up validation that I've added. Now let's get to some of the more innovative stuff. Okay, so as you can see on the right, we have a video, a YouTube video, which has been integrated into this form explaining how to fill out the form. So
this video will explain step by step how to apply for a replacement adult UK passport. First, visit our website www.ukinusa.fc.
Okay, thank you very much to the UK for that, but this is not actually a video explaining exactly how to fill out this form, but the idea is that you can create a video explaining how to fill out your form, talking about the complex areas, talking about what is a guarantor, what should he be filling in each field in the history with the applicant. You can have an actual integrated video in your form explaining the form. You can have a Skype me button that you can integrate with your form, which is if you need help to call a representative while you're filling the form, you can do so. I'm not going to go ahead with that, but we could do that. This is a way to communicate with a representative while you're filling out the form. And now we're going to go to even, I would say, perhaps the strongest option. One second. Which is having a live chat with a representative as you're filling out the form. So here we are. Let's begin a conversation. There's a CAPTCHA there. Hope I get it right. Okay. I think I'm going to get it. I think I'm going to ask for another one. Okay, let's see. LKEJ2EE3. Okay, let's try that again. 5RVCS8UK. Okay, here we are. All right. So I'm going to ask the representative, what type of job can the guarantor have? Okay, I'll send that over. And then now I'm going to play the role of the representative here. And I'm going to answer him. He can be a doctor, lawyer, or mayor. And now we go back to the form, and we have an answer. So here we're having a conversation with the representative live as I'm filling out the form. And obviously, I think you can see the potential here to help people fill out forms in a much easier way. So just to sum up, we've seen you can add a video inside your form. You can have live chat. You can add a Skype call me button. I just want to, now the next page is not a form, but this is more of just kind of a scattered work center as I was working on this webinar. And you can see some of the other things which you can add to your forms. I haven't organized this into a form, but you can add a LinkedIn widget. You can add a Twitter widget. Let's say you want your organization to be updating the person who's filling out the form with news about the organization, and this is going to change in 20 seconds. We're going to see some more updates. You can add a Facebook like button. You can, there we go. You can play audio. or something perhaps a little more, I like that better. So now, okay, so I've added all these elements to the form like a magician. Now you're asking yourself, wow, he must have spent about 60 days working on this, adding all these elements to the forms, coding them. Must have been difficult. Raise your hand if you think that all these elements were very difficult to add. Okay, they were not. They were easy to add, and we're going to take a quick look at how I added them in the sequence BPM designer environment, what we call the application studio environment. This is the form that you've seen, and all of these, the buttons and the text fields are very easy to just click and they go on there. This didn't take me very long to come up with. Now, how did I add all the elements? The YouTube, the LinkedIn, the live chat. Well, basically, Sequence enables you to control the client-side code. Oh, okay, hold on. We lost our session. 1 second. Sequence enables you to control the client-side code of your form. Hold on a second. This always happens during the webinar. Okay. Let's just log in again. That's right. Sequence is very secure, so you need to log in, once every half an hour or so, and that's actually a security mechanism. So let's get to that client-side code right now. Here is our process. Okay, and here's the forum. And here's the client-side code, which Sequence enables me to manipulate and add things to in order to enhance the form. So I'm not going to go through it, word by word, line by line, but basically all of the things I've added have been either scripts or iframes, which the various organizations which I've integrated with, such as YouTube and Microsoft Live Messenger and Skype, have provided very simply on their websites. And some of you who do web program will have had experience with this. But here's the very simple iframe which YouTube provides for every video, and I've just pasted this into the client-side code. The same goes for the iframe for the Microsoft Live Messenger, and the same goes for the Skype button, call me. That was all just very simple. Go to the website of whether it be Facebook or LinkedIn or Live or YouTube or Skype, and they just give you the code. It's grab the code, and same for Twitter as well. So all of these social media outlets and communication providers are saying integrate us with your website, and you can do this from within a BPM form. Now, what about some of the validation that we did? So here we are creating events. Like here, this is an event which says when I leave the field, when I do which is called a blur, then perform this action and say if the value is not doctor, lawyer, or judge, then call this script display alert. Call this function, and display alert here is the alert. Okay, so this is also very easy to control using what Sequence provides here in the client-side event window, which is to add events. We have also an event, a mouse over event, and you have several events. Here we have the event type, which you can choose from. So based on various user actions, you can run different functions. Okay, so that's part of the interactivity there as well. So as you can see, all this was done in probably in a few hours, really a few hours to create this form. I think that what that says to you is, have you ever thought of adding video to your forms, or audio, or live chat? Well, now you can think about it. Now think about doing that for forms which are hard to use, because they're going to make the experience for your users easier to fill out those forms. And maybe you have a company where the representatives are there. They would love to chat with someone who's filling out a form, and here you're just giving them the means to do that. So that was the demo, and the idea was to really just open up your eyes to what you can do with a form. A form doesn't have to be just text fields. It can also be audio and video and voice, and we hope to see forms which have voice recognition and forms which are intelligent and can understand and interact with the user almost on the level of a human being. And I think we're going to see more of that in the future. Well, that's half an hour. We're going to open up the field to any questions right now, because actually in this whirlwind session we've come through to the end of the demo. So any questions? I have a form here, right here. There's a form on your GoToWebinar dashboard which says questions, and you can ask any questions right now, and I will answer them. See if anyone wants to raise their hand. 1 second. Okay, I'm trying to interact with you right now. We're listening to this webinar, so please fire away. Now is your time to interact with me. What do we have here? Click to open questions pane. This is not a, oh, hold on, we do have a question. How can I create help text? How can I create help text to the forms? Okay. Well, first of all, you can add, there's several ways to create help text to the forms. I'm not sure exactly what you're aiming at, but okay, one of the ways is as labels, which is labels explaining how to fill out the form. Another is I'm not exactly I'm sure what you mean, Klaus. So maybe you could elaborate a little more on that question. But we've seen some of the ways to add text, and we saw the validation pop-up windows, and we've seen some of that. Any other questions? Oh, can we integrate custom videos, or does it have to be only through YouTube? Actually, we have a lot of questions. Okay, so definitely through YouTube. They've made it very simple. Anything which you can add into an HTML page, into a client-side code of an HTML page, can be integrated. So you can create, if you can create a video which goes online, really all you're doing is adding an iframe to the page where the video is. So it doesn't have to be through YouTube. It just has to be online, and you need to be able to put an iframe to that page inside your form. Okay, Klaus is saying like pressing F1 to have help. That's a good question. I'll have to look into it. What I can tell you is that within Sequence we have a very new help ability which we're introducing very shortly, where you can click a help button and it goes straight to help about that page. And I assume we can do the same. Really, perhaps clicking F1, that could be a client event, and that could run a function which is open a help page on that form. So certainly, theoretically, yes. Another question: is the integration of a chat window just for Messenger chat, or can we use other tools like Gtalk or any other? Oh, okay. I'm glad you asked that. Because I tried to use, the first try, Maurice, was that I tried to use GChat and it didn't work. It was supposed to work. Gtalk actually has a whole web page about exactly how to do it, and they make it very simple. And then I did it and it didn't work. And then I saw on some online forums that their Gtalk widget isn't working right now. But I've seen other chat applications that claim to have integration within websites such as Meebo, and sure there's others. So probably not just Microsoft Live Messenger. Okay, let's see if we have any other questions. Okay, any other questions, folks? Well, if that is it, then I want to thank you, there are the questions, very much. Thank you very much for attending this webinar. How to integrate voice, video, and social media into BPM forms. Thank you very much for joining us. If you have any suggestions about the webinar, perhaps how to do things which you didn't see here, which you'd like to see, or ideas, then please email me at les@pnmsoft.com, And thank you very much for joining us. This webinar will be available online at pnmsoft.com. And under resources, we have a page called webinars where all our recorded webinars are available. And that's about it. So I hope I've opened up your horizons when it comes to forums. And I hope that your users will be more and more satisfied. Thank you very much for being with us today.